Welcome on in. WIP Daily, Joe Giglio with you. Appreciate everyone listening, subscribing, following, and of course, everything with the podcast, downloading it, watching it on YouTube. Any way you check us out, we appreciate it. 94 WIP, our YouTube page there. Tucker Bagley will join me in a few minutes. It's a big week. It's an awesome week, actually, in the sporting world. I love this little block of like 2 or 3 weeks where you get the bracket last night, opening day just about 10 days away. Midday show will be down at Clearwater this Thursday and Friday to be a hangout with the Phillies and get ready for the season. And, of course, NCAA, the draft not far away in football. It's really an awesome time of year. And for the Phillies, it's been a very positive and so far, I'd say a pretty boring camp with the Phils so far. You know, there's a little bit of discrepancy. Are they going to send Rojas down? I start Pache in center field. I think they're very similar players. I think Rojas has more upside. I don't think it's going to make or break things, but hey, if neither hit, they're going to need an outfielder at some point this season. So that's interesting. Health-wise, they've been pretty healthy. Everything's kind of set, not really battles in camp. I mean, Jordan Luplow, is he going to make the team over a J.K.? These are really small things, and the bullpen has 1 or 2 spots with some interesting names and possibilities there, like a Spencer Turnbull or, you know, some guys they've kind of shuffled in and out the last couple of years. But we got some news yesterday that feels like something. And I just want to say I'm not hitting the panic button. It's not a panic button hit. But my eyes are open to this because there's a pattern that's going on here. So yesterday, Jason Stark over The Athletic was the first one to kind of really raise an eyebrow and write about this. So Bryce Harper hasn't played in 3 days. Took a couple days off. They had a home game yesterday where typically the Stars play. You know, long road trips in spring training. You have to go across Florida or across Arizona, although I think the Arizona spots are a little bit more condensed. But Florida, you got to take some long bus trips. And a lot of times the star players won't go on those. If Bryce Harper's not traveling 3 hours on a bus to go play a game, take that day off in the backfield, play the next home game. That's the way they do with veteran players. Always have, always will. But yesterday was a home game off of 2 days not playing, and Bryce Harper didn't play. And now the Phillies have told him to back off and not do anything today. He has back soreness. Okay? He has hit 0 home runs in spring training so far. Opening day 10 days away. Rob Thompson this morning on the morning show reiterated, there's nothing to see here, nothing to worry. He expects to be back in games by the end of the week. He'll be on the field for opening day. Well, that's all wonderful. But as I look at this, and Jason Stark wrote about it, there's definitely something to keep your eye on here because for a couple things. One, this is years now. We've been going on with Bryce Harper having soreness. I think last summer they called it general body soreness. Years before they called it back soreness. He missed time a little bit in 21. You know, this has been years now where that back has bothered him. It kind of wrenches on him, and he has to either miss a game or come out of a game. I remember what season it was. It was either last year or the year before. I think it was last year. He had that really weird at-bat. I think it was against Hobie Milner of the Milwaukee Brewers where he just looked non-competitive. And I always wonder with things like that, did his back tighten up? And why does that happen? Is this just like, hey, he's an athlete, some athletes just their back tightens up once in a while? Or is there a thing going on here, a pattern of years of issues with his back that if they've kept it under control? I don't know the answer. All I know is Bryce Harper has played in 3 days. He's not doing anything today, like 0 baseball activities. And the other thing that really caught me in Jason Stark's piece, and I didn't even think about it, because it's just generally been a good camp for the Phillies. It's been a drama-free camp for the Phillies. So I'm not really looking at statistics, especially for, established veteran stars. I don't care what their stats are in spring training. And especially a guy like Bryce Harper, whose track record is immense, like whatever. But one thing you know about Bryce, and we've seen this since he was young, he generally hits in spring, and he generally gets off to hot starts during the season. Like April's one of his best months every single year. He missed April last year, obviously, and he never real spring training. But April's always been really good for Bryce Harper. He gets out of the gate fast. Think about his first weekend here as a Philly against the Atlanta Braves in 2019. Hit a home run that, I think it was the Saturday or the Sunday game. He gets hot. He gets off to hot starts. The MVP year he had in 2015 ran out of the gate. I mean, just was unbelievable through the first month of the season. He likes to hit early. So far in spring training, he has 0 home runs and he's slugging .273. Is that for any real reason for pause or cause? Normally, no. But when you combine it with, hey, his back has been rough enough here or bothering him enough that the Phillies say no game in front of the crowd, and a lot of those people, 10,000 people, at Baycare Park on Sunday, we're there to see Bryce Harper. I mean, let's be real. If you're buying a ticket to a Phillies game, whether it be in Clearwater, Florida, or Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, you want to see Bryce Harper. He knows that. The Phillies know that. He typically plays those games. He couldn't play yesterday. No baseball activities today. And now, obviously, you factor in that he hasn't really hit like we're used to him hitting in spring training. It certainly is a cause for some concern. Now, big picture and small picture on Bryce. Big picture, this is part of why. When this contract thing came up a couple of months ago and he wanted an extension on the 8 years he has left, I just thought the whole thing was laughable. I said it many times on this show. I said it on the air on WIP. The idea of giving a 31-year-old player with 8 years left on his contract, more years is crazy. We have no idea what Bryce Harper's body will look like, what his swing will look like, what his play will look like 7 years from now. We have no idea. I mean, you could try to project it and you can maybe guess it, but we don't really know. I could guess this year and next year, with players that have an established track record, it'd probably get pretty close to a guess, but we have no idea. You have no idea how these guys are going to age. Some guys age remarkably well. Some guys don't. Some guys have no injuries. Some guys start having injuries. That's why when you look at a player when he's 25 and you calculate his pace for his career, it doesn't always work like that. Guys fall off. And then suddenly someone who's not very good right now will become a good player. I'm not saying Bryce is going to fall off precipitously, but this is all part of it. That's why re-signing a player with 8 years left is crazy. Like, what if Bryce Harper has back issues now or physical issues for the rest of his career? I mean, what if? I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping he does it. We're all hoping he does it. But that's certainly a possibility the Phillies have to consider, and it's why I thought any idea of a contract extension was silly. Let's see how his body holds up moving forward. Now, on the shorter term, two things jump out to me. One, something a guest said to us recently on the midday show, and then two, the Phillies and how this could impact things. Okay, let's start with how it could impact things. The Phillies have really built this roster for Bryce Harper to play first base, to take down first base every day, because they're planning to take Kyle Schwarber off the field. Now, I think Schwarber could run to left field and get you through some time if you need. I know I'm in the minority on that. I watched this team get to Game 6 of the World Series in 2022 with Schwarber playing every day in left field. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but certainly it would make them much worse on defense. You would have two below-average defenders next to Rojas or Pache, whoever's playing center field. And you might have to go back to Marsh because you want to keep Marsh's bat in the lineup, which means neither of your fleet-of-foot center fielders play. So it's a poor outfield, no question. Defensively, if it's Castellanos and it's Marsh and it becomes Schwarber back in left field. But that's really what they'd have to do, because if Bryce – let's play it out. Let's say Bryce's back is a thing where it's not degenerative. It's not going to kill his season. It's not going to kill his career. But he needs a day or two of maintenance every week as a DH. That's certainly, I think, possible. And if that's possible, well, then what's the defensive alignment look like? Well, probably Alec Bohm moves to first base on those days, and Whit Merrifield plays third base. And I think you'd be fine there. I think both those guys would do a fine job. I thought Bohm did a decent job at first base when he had to play it, and Merrifield could play anywhere. And he has been taking more grounders at third this spring than he has in a while. I think he could play that without question. And yeah, you have Sosa too, but I like Merrifield more. And then in the outfield, you have to put Schwarber back in left field and figure out center. It could be depending on the handedness of the pitcher. Maybe it gets righties, it's Marsh, it gets lefties. It's either Pache or Rojas, whatever. But you have a worse defense there. I think they get away with it, but it certainly is not the plan. The plan is for Bryce Harper to play first base. The plan is for Kyle Schwarber to DH, which makes your defense better. I also think there's a thought it could keep Schwarber healthier and more productive at the plate. Last year, he had a knee issue. I mean, he had an issue for a while last year that was probably hampering him more than we knew. Did that affect the batting average, how he hit? I don't know. But I think it could get you the best out of Schwarber if he's in the outfield, if he's in the DH spot all the time. So it affects the team, and just generally it makes them worse. It makes them worse defensively. It forces them to take one of their best outfielders off the field, put their worst outfielder on the field. It forces them to probably overexpose Merrifield as an everyday player at third base. And it doesn't give you any option for Bohm, maybe a little bit of a platoon, right? You know, maybe once in a while you want to get Bohm off his feet. Well, you can't because he's got to play first every day. So it really impacts the whole thing. We had Eric Katz on the show with us, I would say about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago. Former Phil, now doing the Foul Territory podcast, Fair Territory. And he said something to me and to Hugh and I and to everyone that was really interesting, because I think there's been a thought here that Bryce Harper could be better off physically if you get him out of the outfield. I think it's probably why the Phillies did that, or maybe why Bryce wanted him. I mean, whoever's idea was, someone wanted to get him out of the outfield and to first base as a permanent thing. It started last year as an experiment, and then this offseason became a permanent thing. And the idea is, look, less running into walls, less diving, less, TJ Friedel from the right just broke his wrist diving for a ball. None of that happens, likely at first base. The elbow, which he blew out throwing from right field, all that wear and tear, running around is off the table. But Eric Kratz's point, he's a former catcher, so he understands the nuance of moving around, squatting, every play you got to move. And he said, actually, he thinks first base is going to be more challenging for Bryce physically because he's in on every play. He's always bending over. He's twisting. He's turning. The pickoff play, like he's never just still. If you're in right field, you could go an inning or two or three without the ball coming to you. I mean, you just hang out there. You don't, it's quick bursts of action, and you have to put a lot into it, but it's quick bursts of action, then maybe a lot of down period. And at first base, there's almost no down period. Anytime there's a base runner, you're in the action. And anytime there's a ground ball, you're in the action. So, maybe first base is not going to be as easy. And Bryce has been training hard. There's been videos coming out. Him and Bobby Dickerson down there every day. I mean, maybe this is just a lot on Bryce Harper's body, on his back, the back that has bothered him for a while now, or at least given him some little hiccups every now and then for a while now. Maybe first base actually ends up being a more challenging thing. So it brings you back to that contract extension, which seemed crazy idea at the beginning. Two, it's going to make this year more challenging. And I think they have enough to close the gap on the Braves, but they need a full year of Bryce. And they need it to be at his best, MVP level Bryce for a full season. This now makes you wonder, can we get that? The defensive thing, and then is first base actually the best thing physically moving forward for Bryce Harper? Tucker, here we are. Bryce Harper, as we get ready for the season. It's been a quiet camp for the Phillies. Most things really good. I mean, drama-free for the most part until this, which on the surface doesn't have to mean anything, but I thought it was notable that Jason Stark thought it was notable enough to write about.
Yeah, and if you read his article on The Athletic, it's very negative, right? It's not, wow, imagine this. I mean, he was pretty adamant that this could be a big deal, and maybe it's not, right? Like, it's something that happens. I'm a couple years younger than Bryce Harper. You're a couple years older than Bryce Harper. We both wake up in the morning with back stiffness sometimes. Like, it happens, but due to the nature of our jobs, we're able to get through the day and not call out. But it's something that we're now dealing with for, like, the fifth straight year, right? Like, he missed time in 2020 due to back stiffness. He missed time in 2021 due to back stiffness, missed time in 2022 due to back stiffness, missed time early last year due to back stiffness. And then remember, his start to playing first base was delayed about 2 to 3 weeks due to back stiffness. Like, this is just something that's carried on. And while it's fine that he keeps coming back, it's clear it's not going away. And that's something that, to me, it's not necessarily a short-term issue, because it clearly hasn't, deteriorated his quality of play. But when we're talking about this guy having 8 years left on his contract, and I remember us talking about this 4 years ago on the evening show about, hey, this is worrisome that a guy in his late 20s is having this kind of back trouble when back issues don't normally go away, right? Like, just look across the street at what DeAnthony Melton's dealing with. Now, he has a little bit more of a serious injury, but he missed, 2 months, played one half, and had the same issue again. And now he could be out the rest of the season. So certainly for a guy with 8 years left on his contract, being cautious is certainly the way to go. But it does worry me as we look at how much time he has left, how much time he wants added on top of that, where is there a world by, he's 31 now, at 34, 35, maybe he can't play every day. He becomes a part-time player. He's not the first baseball player to deal with back issues that could cut his career short. Now, maybe that's worst case scenario, but when we're talking about a guy whose future we're trying to plan a decade in advance, 13 years in advance, that's something to consider. Because if these signs are already popping up at 31, I don't know if Bryce Harper's going to be able to stand up and trot out to first base or get in the batter's box at 43.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, you think about, look, Don Mattingly had this. It kind of changed his career. His power went away last 4 or 5 years. David Wright. I mean, David Wright went from one of the best players of baseball, a Hall of Fame level guy for about 10 years, and it was like, out. It's over. I mean, that happens. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be Bryce. Hopefully, it's not worst case scenario, but it could change things. Also, I want to bet on the Phillies to win the division. I think they've closed the gap on the Braves. I think the Braves are going to come back to earth this year a little bit in the regular season. But I need to know I got Bryce every day if I'm going to make that bet. So there's a lot at stake here. Hopefully, the Phillies are spot on with this. It's just a couple-day thing. It'll calm down, some ice, some rest, some heat packs, and he's there opening day. No big deal. But I'll be watching, and I'll be in Clearwater at the end of this week when Topper says they expect him back in the lineup. If he's not, it feels like a thing. We'll talk more about it. Appreciate everyone listening, subscribing, following WIP Daily. We'll talk soon.